Welcome back to Just Got Radio on BJPenn.com. I'm your host, Cole Shelton, episode 140. We got a good lineup ahead of UFC Vegas 79. First up, we were joined by one half of the co-main event, and Dan Ige to preview his fight against Bryce Mitchell. Dan, obviously coming off that nice win over Nate Landwehr in June, gets a big fight here against Bryce Mitchell. This is a fight that has been in that he always thought was going to happen eventually, and it's one that he's really looking forward to. Bryce obviously hasn't fought since December of last year when he lost to Ilya Topuria, and then he kind of hinted at retirement, but then shut that down, which Dan thinks shows there's a quit in Bryce that he's really ready to prove and get in a big stoppage one here and prove that he's ready to make that run up the featherweight ranks. We're then going to be joined by Michelle Waterson-Gomez to preview her rematch against Marina Rodriguez. This fight coming by surprise. When I told Michelle that, she was a bit surprised. She thought it made a lot of sense. Obviously, Michelle's on a 3-fight losing streak. To start that losing streak is a 5-round decision loss to Marina Rodriguez. But if you remember that fight was put together on like 10 days notice, 14 days notice, something like that. And it was at 125. And then on fight week, mine and Michelle's interview was like way on. Usually, like we don't do it like 2-3 weeks out. We did it the Sunday before the fight because there was still a lot of concern that Marina wouldn't even get to the States. So that fight was very hectic for Michelle, but she says she learned a lot. She thinks she has a lot of room to grow in that fight, and has an idea of how she could go out there and win this one. And then we close things out talking to Bryan Battle on the main card to preview his fight against AJ Fletcher. This should be a very fun one. Bryan coming off that nice 14-second knockout over Gabe Green. He did miss weight in that fight. He said that was a one-time thing. He said just being at home, running around, trying to see everyone, it just took away from him. So he learned his lesson from that one. But he fights AJ Fletcher, who picked up his first UFC win back in February. And Bryan thinks Age is going to try to wrestle him, but he has a lot of confidence in his power that he'll shut his lights off and get another knockout win here. But be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of Just Scrap Radio. All right, we're joined by UFC featherweight Dan Ige, who's got a big fight upcoming at the end of September. Dan, how's it going, man?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Just a couple weeks out. I'm feeling good, feeling ready, anxious, ready to go. Excited.
Yep. Very quick turnaround too. Like fought in June, fighting 3 months later. Like, how happy are you to kind of make this quick turnaround? Because it's been like for a while, it was a while in between fights for you.
Yeah, I think 2022, I only fought one time, so it feels good. This is my third fight this year already, January, June, September. So I could be on track to fight 4 times. As long as I'm healthy and capable and willing, then I want to, stay active and keep the ball rolling, keep the momentum going.
And then for you, like I know when we've talked, like you've never been someone to really care who you fight, but after kind of fighting 2 unranked guys and defending your spot, like how happy are you that it is a guy in the rankings and a guy like Bryce?
I still kind of don't really care, but it does feel nice to start moving back up the ladder again. I took out 2 guys that were on the verge of the top 15 and just kind of left no question that like I belong in the top 15. So now to fight number 10, Bryce Mitchell, it's just a step in the right direction, step back up the ladder and, working my way back up towards the top and fighting a top 5 guy or top 10 guy. It doesn't really matter. But I'm excited for this fight, so it should be good.
Was this a fight like you just kind of always assumed would happen some point?
In the beginning, I think we both got signed around the same time. He came off the Ultimate Fighter. I came off Contender Series, and it was just a fight that I thought made sense for a long time, and it just never happened. But here we are. We sit 2 ranks apart. He's coming off a loss. I'm coming off 2 wins, and it just makes sense that it's finally happening. And I don't have any bad ill will towards him. He just, he's in my way and I'm trying to, get to the top. So yeah, it's just one of those fights, but it's a good fight. There's a lot of hype behind it seems like, and I'm just excited to go out there and capitalize my moment.
What have you kind of made of his UFC run? Like that Barbosa fight, like really surprised me because like, how good his striking was. And then obviously the last one against Ilya, he did lose. And I think kind of that was the fight where people kind of started to realize how good Ilya was.
Yeah, I also think he just had a bad night. Bryce had a bad night. His game got shut down pretty quick. Ilya did a great job there, but he's had a great UFC career thus far. He's 14-1. That's pretty good record. and he's beaten some pretty good guys. Edson Barboza, he hurt Edson on the feet, took him down and dominated him. He beat a bunch of good guys, so it should be a good test. I feel like I've fought, really good competition in my past, so he won't come off as a surprise to me. I train with really good guys, and I'm just, again, looking forward to it. I don't know. I don't even really look at the name anymore. I just focus on myself and what I can do and what I could control, and go in there and just impose my will.
Fighting at the Apex, like, is that a disappointment for you? Like, obviously it's local to you, it's quick, no travel, and I know obviously you have another kid, so that probably is nice, but I imagine you'd rather be fighting in front of fans.
Yeah, I mean, especially the last one being in Vancouver, sold out arena, bunch of fans, everyone. I had a really good reception there. To go from there back to the Apex, it is what it is. I like the Apex because it is 12 minutes from my house, and I just have that home field advantage. I could sleep in my own bed, drink my own coffee, not have to go around and look for things and wonder where I'm going to sleep or what I'm going to eat. Everything's taken care of. So that's the pros of fighting at the Apex, and could just drive there in my own truck and drive home after. So it is what it is.
For you, like, do you get like a hotel room? Do your weight cut at the hotel, or where do you do it all then when it is in Vegas?
Yeah, I'll get a hotel just for a weight cut night or whatever morning night. And they do put us at a hotel. I think they have us at like the Palace Station. I probably won't stay there. I'll get my own room somewhere, somewhere nice, Cosmo or Bellagio or somewhere, Red Rock. Who knows?
I guess it's probably just easier, like, away from everything and like not doing it at your own house, and like, so you make sure kind of everything is there for
Yeah,
you.
and not having to do laundry using like 100 towels, sweaty towels, and just throw them on the ground. I feel bad for like all the house cleaning people that are doing fight week hotels, because there's got to be like over 200 towels, maybe more. Yeah, I'd say at least 200 towels on one day.
With Bryce, like, do you think the smaller octagon plays like much of a difference? Like, because obviously he's a guy that wants to grapple, it tends to favor the grapplers, but like, do you think? But you guys obviously featherweights aren't these huge guys anyway. So like, do you think it plays much of a role in it?
I don't know. I think it fares an advantage to me. It's less space for him to move, and I know he's going to come in and try to pressure and throw some awkward stuff on the feet, and it's obvious what he wants to do, but you also can't underestimate a stand-up, and also can't underestimate my grappling, because I think my grappling is better than his. But it's going to be a fun fight. He's one of those guys, you kind of know what you're getting. It's just he's awkward and hard to time and hard to figure out. So as long as I could control the distance, the range, and capitalize on his mistakes, then it's a clear, easy win for me. If I don't, if I fall into his game and fight on his terms, and then it's a long night for me. So I just have to be smart, patient, composed. Again, I've been in there with some of the best in the world, and I have a lot of experience, and this is my third fight this year already, and I don't remember when his last he fought and he thought about retiring after one loss. So it just kind of tells you a lot from that. And I've fallen many times, and I've always gotten back up and gotten better, and here I am.
That is something I did want to bring up, is how he kind of hints at retirement after that one loss. So do you kind of think like mentally you can go out there and break him? Like, if there's a way to quit, like he'd be a guy to take it, or like, because like I saw some people say that after one loss he was ready to kind of give up and retire. Like, what are your kind of thoughts on that?
I definitely think he had a breaking moment in that fight. Number one, it wasn't necessarily like Ilya went in and put on this crazy pace and got him tired and broke him. Bryce broke himself. He went into that fight. He did everything he could to try to, take the fight to the ground and get it into his world. And he's getting pieced up on the feet. Couldn't take Ilya down. couldn't figure out his timing. Ilya was patient, and he kind of ended up I think he got him down one time. He scrambled back up to the feet. Round 2 came around, and you could just tell he started getting flustered, and he broke himself and basically got ragdolled to the ground and choked out. And the second the choke was in, he was already tapping. He didn't even try to fight it. And then he came out in an interview that literally like that week, I think, with Brett Okamoto, talking about the flu, and it's a fight night. Like you just don't make excuses.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Everyone's different, but he came out, he made an excuse that he had the flu. It doesn't really matter how you feel. No one cares. No one cares if you had the flu. No one cares if it's your best day ever. No one cares if it's a bad day. But you show up and you take the loss like a man, and you move on. And then, yes, he talked about retirement. But you know what I think happened is he went home. His family still loved him. His close people still loved him. So the consequences really weren't that bad for being broken in the octagon, and which means it's possible he could break again. But who knows? I'm not too concerned or worried about where his head's at. I just worry about myself and my own mind because I'm a human too.
Something you said earlier is you think you have the better grappling than him. Like, do you think both you guys are kind of get underrated? Where like I think a lot of people viewed this fight as just like, oh, you need to keep it standing or he needs to get down to the ground. Where I think like people overlook your grappling and they also overlook like Bryce's striking ability as well.
On paper, they would call this a grappler versus striker matchup. Me being the striker because of, I've had a few knockouts and I hurt guys on the feet, but I came from a grappling background, and same with him. I think he's predominantly a grappler, but he has awkward striking, good kicks. He's long. He hurts guys, like he hurts people. He hurt Bobby Moffitt with the left hand. He hurt Edson with the left hand. So it's his awkwardness. It's not like a crisp technical boxing or kickboxing. It's just awkward timing, and with 4-ounce sleeping pills, you can put anyone out. So
how do you kind of see it playing out then?
So hard to say. I always prepare myself for the absolute worst. I prepare myself to go the distance, but I just see it playing out similar to, I can't even compare it to a fight, but similar to Damon Jackson. Like he's similar in a way where he's very, sorry, got people in there, awkward on the feet, kind of got that herky-jerky timing and style, and obviously wants to try to make it a grappling fight. But I think if I could control the range and control the distance and the pace, that I'll be able to dominate the fight from bell to bell.
Obviously, Bryce is ranked 10th, and like the featherweight division, like a lot of those top guys are either out or Volk's already beat him. So, like, what do you think a win here does? Especially say you go out there and finish him. Like, Volk kind of needs new challenges. Like, wouldn't be surprised if you're like 1-2 fights away after this one.
I feel like that's always the case for me. If I can go in there and impose my will and get a nice victory, me fighting 3 times this year keeps me relevant in that sense. Just being active. So I'm around, my face is around. I'm getting good performance of the night, knockout over Damon Jackson, great fight with Nate Landwehr, fun, exciting fight, fighting Bryce Mitchell, and, win over Bryce with 3 fights this year just kind of sets me up for another big fight. My wife's pregnant. She's due February, so I'd like to fight before then and try to get 4 in before before her daughter is born. And it could literally, like you said, it could be 1-2 fights away. But it all depends, fighting Bryce, like who do we get next after that? And it can't be like a Cater or Mosar, or Emmett, 3 guys that fought, but there's still like Ortega, or Arnold Allen, there's other names out there of guys that are still in the top that a win over them could, yes, again, put me to that title.
The featherweight division, like, do you imagine it probably is going to be Ilya next for Volk, or like, what do you think they kind of do?
I don't think they'll give it to Ilya. I think I think Ilya will end up fighting Arnold one more,
Yeah,
Arnold Allen, and if he gets through Allen, then you got to give it to him. But dude, Max, I know it's like Max and Volk 4 almost doesn't make sense, but he's beaten everyone besides Volk. It's like, what are you gonna do? Um, but I think Arnold Allen and Ilya should fight. Just because I think Ilya is below Allen. Um, and that would be his truest test. And then you never know. I think I'm a good matchup for him too.
yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's just such a weird spot. Like, I don't really know if Ilya should get the shot, and like, I don't know. Like, I imagine Volk could probably beat him right now. So like, especially if you get him, and I saw a lot of people saying like, "Oh, you should give him Max," but I feel like Max would beat him, and then you kind of ruin Ilya as a contender, which makes the Max thing so tough at the top because he beats most of those guys, and he just can't beat Volk. So like, for you, like with Volk, like do you like how much longer do you think he'll even be here for? Because I wouldn't be surprised like he gets 1, 2 more title defenses and maybe he just goes up to 55 again and like ends up just staying there full time.
Yeah, I mean he could hold his own at 55. We've seen it with Islam, and Islam's probably the strongest guy at 55. Like I've grappled with him. I grapple with a lot of those guys, 170 pound. Like Islam's really strong, and Volk was able to, hold his own in there and defend well and make it a close fight. So you never know. He's just guys always want to go after 2 belts. It just seems to be like the trend
Mhm.
these days, and it's so hard to just even think about and see it. Just it may happen one day, and who knows? I even think Max can do really well at 55. I think there's a lot of he's hinted at it before too, but I can't imagine that he really wants to have Volk win. I just I would hate losing to a guy that many times if that's the number one guy. Like
Mhm.
that's the guy to beat. So I'm sure he's just, he wants to fight that guy best out of 7, come back and win 4. Like, you lose 3 times. I know Max would like to probably get that one back. But again, that's someone else's chapters, someone else's life and circumstances. So I don't really think too much about it.
Just a couple more things you kind of laid out. You want to fight December, January before your wife has the kid. So like ideal like goal, like what is that kind of time for? Like I imagine pay-per-view or main event. Like what is kind of the scenario for you? Like do you know who you think would be against, or is it just really anyone above you and then hopefully one of those dates?
Yeah, I really think just kind of anyone. At first, my original goal was to fight 3 times this year: January, June, December, and we got the September fight that came around pretty quick, and I was healthy, so it was a no-brainer for me. It was a good opponent that we wanted, and then found out, we're having another kid, so just things change, priorities change, and I'm healthy. This is kind of my role of providing, and this is how I provide for my family. So whatever I can do to just, fill the barns up and keep the momentum going and keep the cash rolling in, it feels, might as well keep fighting. So I don't really have a name in mind. The only name right now is Bryce Mitchell, and getting through him, and we'll go from there.
2 more things. Obviously, Korean Zombie retired. That's a guy you shared the octagon with for 25 minutes. Like, what was that kind of like to see that fight? Because I know obviously Max is a big guy for you, just Hawaiian, and then seeing Korean Zombie retire, and you're one of the kind of guys that was able to share the cage with him.
Yeah, I actually woke up. I think I woke up at like 8:30 that morning, and the fights were over. And I saw ESPN articles saying Max Holloway knocked him out. I was like, oh man! So I had to go back and watch the fight, and it was a good fight. It's a good farewell, even though he went out with a loss. But I think Zombie just went out on a shield. He came in like the old Zombie and just hands down rushing in, brawling, and I think it was a good, it was a good thing, like a good reception. You got a good reception from the fans, good reception from, great opponent and Max, and Max built him up too, picked him up after. It was just a beautiful thing to watch, and having shared the octagon with him, a legend like that means a lot. Obviously, would have loved to win that fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never be able to get it back. So it is what it is.
Just final thing, like I know when Max was fighting, he was obviously talking about the fires quite a bit in Hawaii and like how that was kind of emotionally tolling for him. For you, like, is it the same thing, or do you not have as many like family members and friends over there?
No, it is emotional because for the first couple of weeks, I felt guilty just for living my regular life, waking up, pouring my espresso in the morning, jumping in my truck, training, while people lost everything. There's friends and family that I have that just lost everything they had. They lost their loved ones, they lost their houses, they lost their land, they lost their pets, they lost their kids, they lost their valuables, and it sucks. It's a super unfortunate circumstance. So, in the beginning, that's why I was trying to use my platform to spread any type of awareness I could, to share the family's Venmo, share good causes, because it just sucks to see and like watch your government not do anything about it. And that's just a whole different, thing of politics and whatnot. And it's just like, the cool thing was to see the people and the community and everyone come together, and just, I think we've made more of an impact just from that. And like seeing all the locals come together to help each other was like an awesome thing to see. And still to this day, like you saw everyone walking out, like people that aren't even from Hawaii with the UFC Hawaii shirts, and just bringing awareness to a cause to help these people, because they'll never get their, they'll never get their people back. They'll never get their houses back. And we just got to make sure that, we can help the people directly. We can't rely on Oprah or The Rock or other foundations or our government. We as a people have to help the people directly, and try not to sell out to the elites. That's it.
Well, Dan, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, man.
Yeah. All right, we're joined by UFC strawweight Michelle Waterson-Gomez, who's back in action at the end of September. Michelle, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm excited. Just kind of in the grind of the training session right now.
Obviously, an interesting fight. One I didn't really see coming is obviously rematching Marina Rodriguez. When you got that name, like how kind of excited were you to try to get that loss back?
I'm really excited. I took that fight on last minute notice. It became a 5-round fight, and we had to fight at 125. So I feel like I gave her kind of an advantage of not having to cut so much weight. So this time around it'll be nice. We're gonna be fighting 3 rounds at 115. So I definitely feel like I'll be able to push the pace more, and this will be my actual first rematch of my career. So it'll be nice to be able to kind of right some wrongs that happened in that fight. And I'm curious to know why you think you didn't think that matchup was gonna happen.
I just like was surprised. I guess it does make sense. I was surprised they are rebooking you just because like I figure the UFC like they don't do a whole lot of rematches unless it's for the belt. Like you don't see a
Right.
lot of rematches. That's why I was kind of caught by surprise. But then like it does kind of make sense just because like that first fight was super weird. Like I remember we did that interview like a week before, and then even like the Monday or Tuesday, there was still like some concern, even if Marina was gonna get to Vegas in time. So like, how
Yeah.
much do you take away from that first fight? Like, obviously, it was pretty hectic to put together. Like, didn't have a training camp, up a weight class. Like, how much do you take away from that one to this fight?
It was a great fight, honestly. We went 5 rounds. It's a great experience for both of us. I remember being really disappointed in myself after that fight, and then talking to Dominic Cruz, and he's like, what do you mean? You took that fight on 1 week's notice and you went toe to toe with her 5 rounds. Like, you landed some really, really good shots. Watching the fight back, I had really great moments and I just wasn't able to capitalize it on it. And so that's the plan this time around.
And then your last fight, like, what do you take away from that one? That was a fight I thought you won. And like, what do you kind of take away from that fight?
You know, what I take away from that fight is to not hang my head so low on things that are out of my control. Um, it really did kind of put a damper on a lot of things, a lot of the momentum that I was trying to build, especially just signing that new deal with the UFC and wanting to showcase, that I belong in the top 10. And I do feel like I was able to showcase that. I feel like the world really, told me what I needed to hear. Um, so really just understanding that uh that the I don't it was really actually confusing for me,
Mhm.
but I want to say 99% of people that I spoke to, talked to, whether you're a fight fan or just a casual or an expert, thought that I won the fight. And so uh, I could lay my head down at night, and be comfortable with that. And I knew I walked away with a great performance, and there were a lot of things that I did really well that we were working on, and that's kind of what I had to chalk it up to. I had to kind of just dust my shoulders off and just kind of move forward.
And then this fight only got announced like middle of August. Did you get more notice than that, or is that kind of when you found out about this fight?
July, August. Um, I I knew it was gonna happen. I definitely had a good camp for this fight. Um, um, but with anything else, camps are camps.
Mhm.
Life happens outside of training. That's one of the things that I don't think very many people realize is that, as we're training, um, life is happening. We have personal issues. We have things that we're hurdling at home with our families, and small things just like taking care of my daughter's schoolwork and stuff like that. On top of training, on top of businesses that I own, on top of the normal wear and tear of a fight camp. So, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I absolutely love what I do.
And then with Marina, like obviously since you guys fought, she went 2-2, like lost her last two fights. Like, what have you kind of made of her recent run since you guys fought?
You guys, I feel like the strawweight division is so neck and neck. It's just when you get to a certain level of competition, that's just what it is. And that's something that I've had to wrap my head around too. The older I get, the more I've been fighting, the more I've been in this game. I used to really hang my head low when I lost, and I realized some of the baddest dudes in the world have losses. I remember watching the fight with Gaethje and Poirier. That the rematch with those two studs, and the way that Poirier lost, nobody would ever look at him and be like, "Oh, he's washed up. He's not a good fighter. This and that." Like, he's a freaking warrior. And I think sometimes it's easy for us to say that on the outside looking in because we get to watch these fighters fight and we have an appreciation for the martial art. But you're your worst critic. So sometimes I think that when you deal with the loss, you put yourself lower than what it is. The fight game's a tough business, and it's 50-50. There's no, oh, it was a close one. It was either you win or you lose, and it goes on your record for that for forever. And so you can't put too much emphasis on the wins or the losses. I still feel like Marina Rodriguez is dangerous, and I think that she's hungry, and as I am as well, and maybe that's why they matched us because we're kind of both in that same boat.
And then in that first fight, I know you did wrestle a bit. Like I think you went like 1 of 5 or 2 of 5, something like that. It's like how much do you look back on those takedowns to see like what kind of went right and wrong to head into this one?
Oh, the takedowns were phenomenal when they happened, you know. She really didn't have an answer. And so definitely something to look on, to keep an eye on. But it is MMA, it's mixed martial arts for a reason. You have to be able to utilize, you know, the tools that you have available when you can. So you never want to be too desperate for a shot, the same way you never want to be too desperate for a knockout. You got to be prepared for the fight wherever it goes, and hopefully you capitalize and take that W home.
How different of a fight do you think this is? Just because you guys both had a full camp and obviously only 3 rounds now and at 115, like, do you even really view this as a rematch? Do you kind of view this as like a completely different fight for you?
No, it's a rematch for sure. You know, we felt each other out, and that's a good thing about it, is that we know what it is. So I don't think there's gonna be any feeling out process, especially with there only being 3 rounds. I think we're just gonna kind of get right to the point, get down to business.
And then just at the Apex, is that a bit disappointing for you, is going back there?
It is, you know, and there's pros and cons to that. It is a little bit more of an intimate setting. And so I get to hear my coaches, I get to hear their coaches, I get to hear the sound she makes when I do take her down onto the ground. I get to hear the huh and and that kind of, you know, adds to the motivation. You just have to figure out where to pull motivation from. When you're fighting in a huge arena, you pull motivation from the crowd. When you're fighting at the apex, you pull motivation from all those sounds, like the tumbling of you guys hitting the cage, and the sound that it makes when, you know, your glove hits the right spot. So it's the pros and cons.
And then for you, like, do you think the Apex and the small octagon like plays any role in the fight? Like, do you think it changes the way you fight or like the way like fights just play out in general?
For sure. You know, I had my first fight back was it was actually the very first fight.
Mm-hmm.
When COVID hit and they had to shut down all audience, I was on that card,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the weirdest thing. I was fighting Carla, and I remember it clearly because I remember her coaches saying, "Carla, come on, you got to do something. You got to do something. You're losing the fight." I could hear the commentator saying, "Carla has to take her down because she's losing the fight." And so in my mind, there was no sense of urgency to up the ante to anything. I was doing everything that I needed to do to win the fight. Come to find out, I wasn't, to the judges, and I ended up losing the fight to split decision. So like in that sense, yeah, you know, it was negative on my end because I was paying attention to the wrong things. I was paying attention to the commentators, and I was paying attention to her corners when I should have just been not relying on that and just trying to finish the fight.
And is there any pressure on you going to this one, just like on the losing streak? Like, even though the last fight a lot of people thought you won, or do you kind of have to chalk it up as a win, like figure like enter this fight with no real pressure on you then? Because I know you did sign that extension on before the last
I
fight,
did.
before that.
You know, there's always pressure. You know, your next fight is always your most important fight, but when you allow the pressure to stifle your performance, that's when there's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I do chalk my last fight to me as a wash. It sucks that it happened the way that it did, but it was a wash, and I know that in my heart, I know that you know, in the trajectory of my career, it was a step forward. So I move into this next fight with that confidence.
How do you kind of see this one playing out? Like, you obviously have 25 minutes with Marine already. You guys are familiar with each other. It's like, how do you kind of see it playing out then?
I think it's gonna, like I said, we're gonna get right down to business. We had 25 minutes of feeling each other out, and this fight is definitely gonna be a different pace, at least for me.
And do you put any pressure for like trying to get these finishes now, especially after the past couple fights? Like, have been these close decisions, like Carla, like obviously your last one, or do you just have to like think you just have to do like one or two different things in the rounds to kind of sway those judges?
No, I think the judges have. I think it's been really difficult for a lot of the fighters, I want to say in this last year, to really figure out what the judges are looking for. So it's always better, in my opinion, to get the finish, to not leave it in the judges' hands. But that's easier said than done, especially when you're fighting the best people in the world.
And then strawweight division, like probably the deepest division in the women's, like, so like, what do you think win over Marina does for you? Like, she was obviously ranked top 10, but like, it is a very deep division to make that climb too.
For sure. I mean, you're always one fight away. And considering the resume of girls that I fought already, I'm right there, you know.
And then with the division, like, were you surprised to see how like easily Whaley beat Amanda? Because Amanda, I know you obviously fought Amanda. Like, I thought that fight was kind of gonna be closer than what it was.
You just never know in MMA. It's so crazy how, styles really do make fights, and there's some people that have each other's numbers, and in other cases it's a really close fight. Um, so and that's the beauty of MMA. It's just you never know.
Just a couple more things. Like, obviously fighting end of September. Like, do you think this is probably it for you this year? Where you hope to, or you like everything goes where you hoping you can maybe squeeze one more in?
I think that'll be it for this year. The holidays come up, and it's important for me to have balance in life, and my family, especially my daughter, sacrifices a lot of time um, away from mommy when I'm in fight camp, and not necessarily physically away, but I'm mentally away because I am. Uh, my mind is with the fight, and I'm there as much as I can, and I have an amazing support system. But I think it's important for me to be there for her as well when I can. So after this fight, I think I'll take the time to enjoy the holidays. Obviously, not too much. Continue to train, continue to get better, and then maybe sometime early in next year, first quarter.
And then you're still like a top 15 girl in this division, like still one of the best, but you have a lot of stuff outside the cage. Like, you obviously do the acting stuff. Like, have you thought about like how much longer you want to keep doing this, or is that something you don't really think about at all?
I know, I know that these are the final chapters of my fighting career, and I'll just leave it at that.
Just final thing, like you mentioned, first quarter next year. Like, what is kind of the goal then for you next year? Like, everything kind of plays with the way you think. How's that year look for you?
I think I get a win with Rodriguez, and then it's kind of hard, when it goes, like you said, the strawweight division, in my opinion, is probably one of the most stacked, and September, October, November, December, 3 months, so much can happen in 3 months in this division, so you kind of just got to keep your eye open.
Well, Michelle, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
No problem. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, we're joined by UFC welterweight Bryan Battle, who's back in action on September 23rd. Bryan, how's it going, man?
Dude, it's going, man. You know what I'm saying? My body's ready for war. You know what I'm saying? My mind is ready for war. So I'm just trying to get to next Saturday. You know what I'm saying, brother?
Last fight, like, didn't take too long. Like, you surprised you weren't able to make a quicker turnaround on this? Like, still a fairly quick turnaround, but I thought maybe they'd get you right back in there.
Yeah. I'm surprised that it took and I'm saying this like with like quotation marks because, like you said, I mean, and then the day this is like a fine gap, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is kind of like an ideal gap between fights. So I thought I would get a fight a little bit sooner. I was campaigning for a fight a little bit sooner, but in the large scheme of things, there's nothing wrong at all with the gap that I had between my last fight and this fight. Hopefully we get this fight done, no injuries, no cuts or anything, and then get a fight in December or November or something like that.
Your last fight obviously did come in a bit heavy. Like, was there a specific reason for that you figured out, or like what kind of went wrong for that one?
There's a lot of things. I came in at the same weight I always come in. I came in at on Tuesday, I was 191 pounds, which is what I've come in for every welterweight weight cut I've made. There was just a lot of things going on that week. My coach had an unfortunate incident that kind of put him on the sidelines up until right before the fight. What I'm saying, my team, because it was in Charlotte, which was a blessing and a curse, right? Because normally you're just like in a little bubble. Your team's with you all the time, so it's like, you got your regimens, you're doing that. This time I was in Charlotte, what I'm saying, I was doing too much. I was going to see too many people. I still wanted to be like a presence around the gym and be able to see people. And I just took my weight cut for granted because I've always made weight and I'm a sweaty dude, so I always figure I'll always have enough water in my body. But this time I stretched myself a little too thin. I had too many short sessions instead of more extended sessions, and after a certain point, my body was like, okay, we're done with this. We need a we're not doing this anymore. You're abusing us now. So learned a lot of lessons. I've had way more time to prepare for this fight and diet for this fight, so I'm gonna come in a better position to cut weight from. And then when it comes to the actual weight cut, it'll be we got our process. We're going to stick to it to a T. You know what I'm saying? There's not going to be any nonsense. We're not taking anything for granted. We're going to knock this out. It's going to be a non-story. We're going to forget that I ever missed weight, and we're just going to get back to what's important, which is me whooping ass.
And then AJ Fletcher, like, how familiar are you with him? Like, has 3 fights UFC. Like, I know he's one of Poirier's guys. Like, Poirier's always in his corner. It's like, how familiar are you with him?
I'll be honest. Before I got the fight, I wasn't super hip on who he was. But obviously I've had plenty of time to get super familiar with who he is, and now I've watched the tape a lot, by myself with my coaches. You know what I'm saying? We got a pretty good read on how he is in general. You know what I'm saying? I'm anticipating there's going to be a lot of growth. You know what I'm saying? He might not come out tactically like he has in the last several fights, so you don't want to read into the tape too much. But explosive dude, dynamic striker. You know what I'm saying? Can hit you with some crazy stuff if you're not ready for it. He's got a really explosive double leg. He has tight top control. You know what I'm saying? So he's a problem. He's a problem. You know what I'm saying? I think more so than people are giving him credit for, because he's had some struggles in the UFC, but he's also fought some pretty decent guys. So he's definitely someone I'm looking to avoid making any mistakes against. You know what I'm saying? Once you're in the UFC, you just can't make mistakes against anybody.
And you will be obviously a lot bigger than him. Like, you have like a 77 inch reach. He's at like a 67, which is like, you don't see that big of a reach too often. So like, how important do you think that'll be, and like how effective do you think that'll be for you to use?
Was I got to, you know what I'm saying? Like I would be an idiot to not, try to exploit that. But I think there's a big difference in his case, because he is used to that. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like when you have a southpaw person fighting an orthodox person. You know what I'm saying? It's weirder for the southpaw person than it is for the orthodox person. Like, it'll probably be a little bit stranger for me because I'm not used to fighting people with that reach, who have to cover the distance that much, who are that good at covering the distance. So it'll be more of an adjustment for me actually than it'll be for him. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to like someone with the normal reach fighting someone like John Jones who has an extraordinary reach. That's when it's kind of like your reach is in your favor, when you just have an abnormally long reach. AJ's used to having to come in on people. You know what I'm saying? His whole career, he's probably had to come in on guys who have been taller and longer. And, I'm sure in practice, he's been working that since day one. So it's definitely something, I need to exploit. You know what I'm saying? Just fight IQ wise. But I'm definitely anticipating he's going to have a lot of answers to what I try to do to keep him at the end of my reach.
And especially after your last fight, like in the way AJ fights, like, do you just kind of expect him to come out pretty early and try to just grapple you and wrestle you?
Man, dude, if he doesn't shoot a double leg at some point in this fight, one, that'd be a mistake, and two, it'd be pretty shocking if he didn't shoot some kind of double leg at some point. You know what I mean? In my head, you know what I'm saying? If you're just watching both of our tapes, I don't see how you don't see the best path to victory for him being on the ground. You know what I'm saying? I think, the longer we stay on the feet, you know what I'm saying, whether it starts off competitive, you know what I'm saying, the longer the fight goes on, the more I get a read on his timing and range, I'm going to start working him on the feet. So I find it highly unlikely that he won't shoot at some point, you know what I mean? But, we'll see how things go when the fight comes up.
And then just back to the Apex, like, is that a bit of a disappointment for you then?
Dude, I tell you what, I never had, and technically, if you count both of my house fights from when I was on Tough. And this will make me the most winningest fighter ever in the history of the Apex. So I've had a lot of fights in the Apex, you know what I mean? But um it it is crazy. Like, it wasn't just like a stadium show. Like, it wasn't just like it was like my hometown. So it was like, I can't imagine anything being able to replicate the pop that I got over there. So the Apex, it's not really much of a letdown. It's just kind of like, now I know that the grass is a little bit greener on the other side. You know what I'm saying? But I'm also comfortable there. I know how things go there. You know what I'm saying? The Apex is my house. You know what I'm saying? So, and at the end of the day, this is what we do. We fight. You know what I'm saying? I'm on the main card on this fight night. You know what I'm saying? We'll see if that segues to eventually getting on some pay-per-views or some live fight night cards again. But it's a non-factor. You know what I'm saying? That's one of those things I think people get a little too hung up on. It doesn't really matter where I fight. You know what I'm saying? It just matters that I'm gonna whoop this dude's ass.
How do you kind of see it playing out then?
There's it's always, because there's so many variables on like how he can come out and what he's gonna do. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, he is an explosive guy. You know what I'm saying? I doubt he's gonna come out super heavy-handed like Gabe did in my last fight. I think he's going to be really tactical. I think he's going to be really fast. He's going to look for his openings. Like I said, I don't see him not trying to take me down. That's the biggest thing I think is on his mind, is figuring out a way to get me down to the ground and get me on my back. And for me, you know what I'm saying, it's just staying ready. You know what I'm saying? Taking what he gives to me. You know what I'm saying? Exploiting the differences in our body and how we fight. You know what I'm saying? And if he overextends himself early, I'll be prepared to catch him. You know what I'm saying? If we go 15 minutes, you know what I'm saying, he brought his super duper chin and he can take all the shots, then then we'll sit there for 15 minutes and I'll beat him up. You know what I'm saying? But the way I see it going is with my hand getting raised at the end. You know what I'm saying? I don't see it going to a decision. I see me getting the finish at some point in the fight.
Oh, what do you think a win over AJ does for you? Like, would he 5-1 in the UFC? Like, 3-1 now at welterweight? Like, so what do you think a win here would do for you?
Well, like you said, it just becomes a number thing. You know what I'm saying? I think people are still, because my first 3 fights at welterweight, it's really hard to get a gauge on who I am as a fighter. Say that one thing you can take away is that I got power and I got the ability to finish anybody at any time in the fight. But there's still just so many unanswered questions about me to the onlookers and people who are just watching, who aren't training with me every day and know what I'm capable of. So against AJ, I would love to answer some questions. I'd love to check some boxes, and just become more of a sure thing. You know what I'm saying? I feel like as of right now, I'm still kind of like an unknown property. People are still kind of trying to figure out what exactly I am and how much potential I have. And I'm just looking to, let people know that I am for real. You know what I'm saying? That I'm not someone that you can just throw anybody at and I'm going to lose. You know what I'm saying? It has to be one of the top guys in the division. You know what I'm saying? So I think if I beat him, I get either a big name or, a ranked guy. And, we'll just keep on whooping ass. You know what I'm saying? Just keep on climbing the ranks step by step.
Just final thing, like you kind of said, you hope to get one more in this year. So, like, when is that? Like, what is kind of that perfect world look like for you? And like, do you care who'd be next? Or is it really just kind of whoever they give you for now?
I would love to fight in November or December. You know what I'm saying? Once again, depending on how things go in this fight, you know what I'm saying, I could, slip and hurt myself bad. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to jinx myself, knock on wood, but we'll see how healthy I am. Assuming that I'm healthy coming out of this fight, November, December would be the best, because then I can enjoy December. You know what I'm saying? I could, but December would be cool. Yeah, man, I think it'd have to be against someone ranked or someone with the name. So, no one in particular. And once again, even if it is someone that I have to look up when they tell me I got matched up with them, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? As long as I'm fighting, as long as people are watching me fight, as long as my profile continues to grow, that's all that matters. You know what I'm saying? All that other stuff is going to come.
Well, Brian, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again, man.
Thank you, brother. You have a good one.
Yeah.
All right.